In 2017, Jamie Dimon called Bitcoin a fraud. He said it was worse than Tulip Mania. He said he'd fire any trader on his floor dumb enough to touch it. By 2021, he had cut it down to one word: worthless. Now let's take a look at 2026. JPMorgan has a live token running on Coinbase's blockchain. The bank just filed a money market fund straight onto public Ethereum, the exact technology he spent a decade calling a scam, and they're building on it right now. So here's the question I want you holding the entire way through this video. Did Jamie Dimon change his mind about crypto, or did the banks finally realize they were about to lose and decide to capture the one thing they couldn't kill? Because what I'm about to show you isn't adoption. It's a war, a quiet one, over who owns the rails of digital money for the next 50 years, and your savings are the prize. By the end, you'll see the number McKinsey ran that has every bank executive losing sleep, why a Republican senator from the bank's own side called them a cartel, and why the one feature that could have set your money free was quietly made illegal last summer. In other words, everything they said in public was a distraction. What they were building in private, that's what this video is about. I'm DC and you're watching The Coin Bureau. The first thing you need to understand is the distinction that banks are quietly weaponizing. And it sounds technical, but it's not. It's the entire game. There are two kinds of digital dollars fighting for your money right now. The first is a stablecoin. Think USDC, think USDT. A stablecoin lives outside the banking system. It's issued by a private company backed by reserves held separately, and crucially, when you hold one, your money is no longer sitting inside a bank. The second kind is a tokenized deposit, and this is what JPMorgan built. JPMD went live on Coinbase's base network on November 12, 2025. But unlike stablecoins, JPMD is a direct bank liability. It's a digital claim on a real dollar sitting inside JPMorgan. It's interest-bearing, it's FDIC eligible, and most importantly, it stays inside the walls of the bank. So here's what that actually means. The banks are cloning crypto. They're taking the technology, stripping out the part that lets your money leave, and rebuilding it inside the fortress. And the banks are moving fast. To understand why that is, you need to see the number that's keeping every bank executive awake at night. McKinsey ran the math. For every $1,000 that moves into a stablecoin like USDC, banks lose roughly $850 in funding. Think about what that means for the system. 85% of that money evaporates out of the banking system the moment it becomes a stablecoin. And banks need those deposits. That's the raw material they lend against, the foundation of the entire fractional reserve machine. Pull out the deposits and the machine grinds to a halt. And this is already happening. Some analysts have projected a slow but steady drain of core deposits over the next several years as stablecoins grow. Estimates vary, but even a few percentage points draining over 5 years represents hundreds of billions leaving the system. It's a slow leak, but a leak in a dam is still how the dam eventually breaks. So when JPMorgan tells you tokenized deposits are a superior alternative to stablecoins, this is what they're actually saying. They're offering you a cage with a blockchain painted on the bars. And here's the part that should make you sit up. This isn't a side project anymore. JPMorgan's blockchain arm, rebranded from Onyx to Kinexys, has already processed over $1.5 trillion in cumulative volume. The bank is targeting $10 billion in transactions per day, but tokenized deposits are only the first move. Because while everyone's arguing about which digital dollar wins, the banks are quietly seizing something far more valuable: the vaults. Here's the core truth most people miss. In any gold rush, the people who get rich are the ones selling the shovels and renting out the safe. And in crypto, that safe is called custody. Now, custody is just the unglamorous business of holding the asset, keeping it secure, making sure it doesn't get hacked or lost. It sounds like plumbing, but whoever owns the plumbing owns the building, and the banks know it. Now, before we go any further, if you want to follow this fight as it unfolds in real time, our Telegram channel is where we break all of this down daily. The link's in the description, and it's genuinely worth joining. Okay. Let's take a look at BNY Mellon. This is the oldest bank in America, sitting on $59.4 trillion in assets under custody as of March 2026. A number so large it's hard to comprehend. So to put it in scale, that's more than the entire annual economic output of the United States, China, and Germany combined, sitting in one institution's vaults. And on May 7th, 2026, BNY launched institutional crypto custody in Abu Dhabi. Bitcoin and Ethereum first, with the stablecoins and tokenized real-world assets next. the oldest bank in America planting a flag in the desert to hold the assets its peers called a fraud. Then there's Standard Chartered. In 2020, Standard Chartered helped create a crypto custody venture called Zodia. Just a little toe in the water, a way to dabble without actually committing. But on May 18th, 2026, they stopped dabbling. They bought out the regulated custody business entirely and folded it directly into the core bank. No more arm's length, no more experiment, in-house, full control. And 9 days later, on May 27th, they became the first global systematically important bank on earth to run an institutional crypto custody transaction in Hong Kong. The first. That word matters because in finance, the first mover writes the rules everyone else has to follow. And now to Morgan Stanley because they're playing the most aggressive game of all. In February 2026, they filed with regulators for a national trust charter. Now, in simple terms, this means that they want to move crypto custody, staking, and trading to a completely in-house solution, cutting out third-party firms they currently rely on. And then they did something that tells you everything about their mindset. They launched crypto trading on E-Trade at 50 basis points, 0.5%. Compare that to Charles Schwab at 75 basis points or Fidelity at around 100. So Morgan Stanley walked right in and undercut the competition on day one. And here's the crazy part. When they launched their Bitcoin ETF in April, they priced it at a 0.14% expense ratio, the lowest in the entire market at launch. This bank is entering at the bottom of a price war, trying to win on volume. And here's the part that reframes everything. The banks aren't the only ones racing for these charters. Between December 2025 and March 2026, 11 firms filed for or won the same federal trust approvals: Circles, Ripple, BitGo. And on April 2nd, 2026, Coinbase itself got conditional approval. Think about what that means for a second. The crypto firm the banks are at war with just got handed the exact same federal blessing the banks have. Now, this is two armies racing for the same hill, and whoever plants the flag first decides the rules of digital money for everyone behind them. Which brings us to the third front in this war, the money itself. Remember how I said banks were cloning crypto to keep your money inside? Tokenized deposits were move one. But some banks decided cloning wasn't enough. They wanted their own stablecoins too. And so on May 27th, 2026, SoFi crossed a line nobody had crossed before. SoFi became the first US chartered bank to put a stablecoin directly inside a consumer banking app. It's called SoFi USD. And it's sitting in front of roughly 14.7 million members. So think about how different this actually is. This is a stablecoin sitting right in a regular person's banking app next to their checking account. SoFi even extended a partnership with MasterCard, so the token can settle payments across MasterCard's global network. To put it simply, the wall between crypto and your everyday money just got demolished. And of course, Fidelity made its own move too. They launched the Fidelity Digital Dollar, FIDD, in February 2026 with reserves held at, of all places, BNY Mellon. So you're starting to see how this web connects, right? The same handful of institutions showing up at every layer of our new system, but the most revealing move of all is happening in Europe. Right now, 37 financial institutions across 15 countries are building a single euro stablecoin called Quiverless. ING, BNP Paribas, BBVA, UniCredit, some of the biggest names in European banking circling the wagons together. And here's the detail that gives the whole game away. To run it, they hired the former head of Coinbase Germany as CEO. Think about the implications of that hire. The European banking establishment is literally recruiting from the enemy to build its defense. That looks more like a hostage negotiation where the banks are writing the terms. And why a consortium? Why 37 banks instead of one bold leader? Well, because the consortium is the moat. You see, no single European bank can fight the dollar stablecoins that dominate 98% of the global market alone. But 37 of them, moving as one before any crypto-native firm can get there first, now that's a fortress. And S&P thinks the prize is worth it. They project the euro stablecoin market could grow to 1.1 trillion euros by 2030, from a base today of less than 0.2% of all stablecoins. The banks are racing to own a market before it even exists, but none of these moves, not the tokens, not the vaults, not the stablecoins, would be possible without one thing: the rules changing in their favor. And that's the part they really don't want you to look at. Here's a pattern that holds across all of financial history. Banks embraced new technology the moment the rules let them dominate it. And in July 2025, the rules changed. President Trump signed the Genius Act, the first federal framework for stablecoins, and it sounds like consumer protection. It mandates full reserve backing, real guardrails, all the responsible stuff, but buried inside is one provision that tells you exactly who wrote the playbook. The Genius Act bans stablecoins for paying yield. So if you hold a stablecoin, the issuer is legally forbidden from paying you interest on it. Now please ask yourself honestly, who does this actually protect? Because the one thing a bank deposit offers that a stablecoin couldn't legally match anymore is interest. The banking lobby's own commissioned numbers claim that allowing stablecoin yield could trigger up to $6.6 trillion in deposit outflows. 6.6 trillion reasons to make sure your stablecoin pays you absolutely nothing. They called it investor protection, but strip away the language and it's a wall built around the one feature that keeps your money in their hands. And now there's a second bill, and this is the live battlefield. The Clarity Act passed the Senate Banking Committee 15-9 on May 14, 2026, and it contains the exact thing the banks fear most, a path for crypto firms to pay deposit-like rewards on stablecoins. The banks, through the American Bankers Association, are fighting it with absolutely everything they have. On May 11th, the ABA sent an emergency letter to every bank CEO in the country. Members fired off over 8,000 letters to the Senate offices. This has become full mobilization, and here's where the mask finally slips all the way off. On May 29th, just a couple of days ago, Jamie Dimon went on Fox Business and said the quiet part out loud. He said if the bill lets crypto firms pay interest on deposits, quote, the banks will not accept it. He said it would, quote, eventually blow up, and he called Coinbase's CEO Brian Armstrong, and I'm cleaning this up for YouTube, full of nonsense, accusing him of spending hundreds of millions lobbying for an unfair edge. So let's stop and look at the contradiction. Dimon is running a deposit token on Coinbase's own network. He's filing funds onto public Ethereum, and in the same breath, he's fighting to make sure crypto firms can never pay you a return on digital dollars. The real issue was that competition was inconvenient. Even a Republican senator, Bernie Moreno, called the banking lobby a, quote, cartel in full panic mode, defending a monopoly that pays consumers next to nothing. When a senator from the party banks usually count on is calling them a cartel, you know the fight is real. So let's close the loop we opened at the start. The question was simple. Is this adoption or is it capture? And now you have the answer. The Bank of England's own policymaker, Megan Green, said it plainly. She predicts tokenized deposits will take over from stablecoins, and that 5 years from now, we might wonder why we talked about stablecoins at all. This is the establishment calmly telling you it intends to replace the disruptors with something it controls. So here's what's actually at stake for you. The original promise of digital money was open and permissionless. Money that moves in seconds, that anyone with a phone can hold with no gatekeeper taking a cut and no institution deciding who's allowed in. Now what's being built instead is the same gate-kept banking system with a blockchain coat of paint. They are relying on the usual vaults and gatekeepers with rules tilted toward the same handful of institutions, just faster and dressed in the language of innovation. The banks looked at a technology that threatened to make them optional and decided that if they couldn't stop it, they would simply own it. They are using tokenized deposits to trap the money, securing custody charges for the vaults, and forming stablecoin consortiums to control the rails, and a regulatory war to make sure the open version never gets to compete on the one thing that matters. So, did Jamie Dimon change his mind about crypto, or did the banks finally realize they were about to lose and decide to capture the one thing they couldn't kill? I'm pretty sure you already know the answer, but please drop your thoughts in the comments. Adoption or capture? And if you want to follow every move as it happens, the votes, the lobbying, the next bank to break ranks, join us on the Telegram channel. Seriously, it's worth it. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again very soon. This is DC, signing